right. I'm here with my good friend Melissa. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you
So,
so much for having me, Caitlin.
yes, I am so excited. I feel like this is a long time coming. So, I am happy to have you here. We have been friends for, I don't know. I was trying to figure this out the other day, and I just I'm like, has it been a decade? Has it been 10 years?
Really, it's
I
been
don't know.
9. It will be 10 years this year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, which is wild.
Yeah, I was like, it has to be getting close. And I just love that we've been able to work together in so many capacities. Like we've gone through so many phases of life and business and friendship. And it's like we always have found our way back to each other. And the funny thing is we've never met in person. So
I know. Isn't that crazy?
it's like so wild to think about that after all this time. But I know it's going to happen when it's meant to be. And I feel like it's going to be one of the most magical moments of our life.
It will. It was like a knowing from day one when we first connected, but like I didn't know what a knowing was then, but it felt like a knowing
Yeah.
for what I
Yeah.
heard.
Yeah. You like, I feel like those relationships that like keep coming back in your life and there's like no reason, like you might not talk for a while and there's like no reason that you don't talk. It's just like happens. And then they come
Yeah.
back and like there's always this like divine timing when they come back. And that's how it was with you. And like I know this in reflection and now after some awakenings, and we're both very much spiritual, but it's like, of course, we're in this spot together. And I'm sure we'll touch base on this throughout our conversation, but a lot of like the synchronicities of our life and our healing has just been really cool. So,
Yes, agreed. The mirrors. There's been so many mirrors along the way and just so much support. And I think that's the biggest thing that helped us keep returning to each other was just that big open heart and open mind every single time that we could just like so freely connect without fears or limiting beliefs or any kind of like anxiety. Just
yeah. And it's funny because we weren't aware of that. Like, we didn't know that.
right. I know.
So, oh, this is like, I feel it in my heart. This is just going to be like one of those conversations I feel like, best friends can have, and other people will be able to relate to this. But for those who don't know Melissa, I want everyone to get to know you a little bit. So I have a few questions. They might seem kind of random, but
Let's go for it.
just to get to know you, what is something that you like to do regularly? This could be a routine or just something like you do in flow, but you come back to that helps you connect to yourself and your intuition.
Ooh, that's a very good one because I am like, as you know me, I'm the least routine person I feel like out there in the world. Um, and not to say I haven't done routines before, but they've just never really resonated with me. I would say it, and this is going to sound super random and super weird, uh, but I guess this is what anchors me back to earth, and this is what I've been realizing how like anchored I am here, and which I didn't think I was. I'm very like galactic, but I am super rooted, and so it's very simple things. It's not something someone would typically think of, like journaling or pulling cards or anything like that. Not to say that I didn't dive fully into that when I started awakening, but it's like the simple things like getting up and making coffee for myself and Simon, or in the evenings washing the dishes or putting the dishes away in the morning. I came to learn like it's those kind of, I'm a very active meditation person, so it's those kind of activities that help me get into flow, and it's working with liquids that helps me get into flow. So the process of making coffee or tea becomes it's this sacred ritual that's been part of my lineage for so long that I didn't realize. And then washing dishes, same thing, like a big part of my lineage, and something that I learned when I was stepping into the fact that mediumship runs in my blood, and that my grandmother was preparing me and training me. She was teaching me to wash dishes from a very young age. We'd wash dishes out the window, and it was like as if she was showing me like, this is where you're going to see and you're going to
Mhm.
connect And it's just like, it's those simple things that are very human things to be doing and very mundane things that we do that we probably just do mindlessly and take for granted. But the moment I started realizing how sacred those moments were and significant to, again, my lineage and past lives, it was just very like, oh, okay. So we don't have, it's like demystifying the
Mm.
magic, right? Because it seems to be like it's something that's so challenging and so hard to get into. And I just remember being like, I'm not spiritual because I struggled getting into these spiritual routines, even just doing more like holistic things before I even started awakening. I found so hard, but I was forgetting the simplicity and the magic of everyday life and that sacred moment. So I know that seems totally crazy, but
Oh, no, I love that. You know, I love that because I have like chills already, and I think it's like I think that's beautiful. And people need to hear that because I just recorded an episode about how like spirituality can be infused in every part of your life. Like it doesn't have to be something separate. And it's that right there, where, you know, some of these things that we do mindlessly, we might have like attached a lower vibrational emotion to it, like resentment or like frustration because, you know, you got to do the dishes before you go to bed, and just removing that, or like just allowing yourself to feel that, and then open yourself for other emotions to drop in or feelings to drop in. I remember my first connection with my guides was when I was doing dishes. Like when
yeah,
I'm probably not my first connection, but my first like audible,
conscious, right? Like
yeah,
this is
like
happening.
clear audience was like, there are people here with me, there are things here with me, you know. And that was my reminder too. It's like there's so much magic in even the mundane things and just being a human. So I love that. I love that you share that. So okay, next question. What is your human design? Well, do your type, profile, and your authority. And then I'll add on to that if you remember your human design. Otherwise, I think I know it.
I feel like you know mine better than me, but give me a brief second because I do have this. So I'm a 1-4, so I'm a generator. 1-4. My authority is sacral.
Say, girl, yes. And you have a
And
defined heart, right? I'm certain you do.
yes, that's the colored ones are defined, right? Yeah. So I
Yep.
have a
Yep.
defined heart.
Yeah. Defined
Defined-
heart, defined G center. I know that. Yes. I
yes.
love that.
Open throat, open mind, open
Mm-hmm.
heart.
Yep.
There's a lot of woo.
You had, and so we'll get into this, but yeah, and you're the vessel of love, right?
Yeah.
Your
Right
incarnation.
angle cross of the vessel of love. So
Yeah.
everything in my life, no matter what it is, comes back to love.
Yes. I love that. And you will, if you don't know Melissa, you're gonna feel that through the whole episode, I'm sure. And then for numerology, what is your life path number or your personal year, whichever, or both, if you want to share both?
I'm a 1. I'm a
Your life
1.
path?
It's a 1. Yeah. Life path
Hmm.
1. And then my personal year is a year 2 this
Okay.
year. So this year for me is about like allowing myself to collaborate, connect. So year 1 was really about like solidifying like my identity and really stepping into that like higher self, like embodying that higher self kind of energy. And then this year it's about like allowing that to flow out there and the connections and seeing how that works in terms of my relationships and that too. So finding myself in my relationships now, as opposed to just like, I know who I am, but like, how do I
Yeah.
fit into this amazing connection that we have with other people? Because again, when we work on those relationships, we're working on that relationship with ourselves and we're all one. So it's that joint, that union, and that I feel like it's like that connecting back to source kind of year.
Mm. Yeah. I love that. So last year you were in a personal year 1 as a life path number 1.
Yeah,
Were there lots of new beginnings for you? Do you feel like?
there was, because that was when I like stepped into coaching like on my own. It's a year prior in my like year 9,
Yeah.
where everything was like big, like let go of whatever's necessary,
Yeah.
like let the fall happen, plant the seeds kind of thing, start stepping into your power. I launched Unbecoming, and that was like a joint effort. And then that really helped me just like get the courage and the confidence and start understanding myself too. But last year was the year that I launched Meant for More, which is my first one-on-one offering. And so really calling me to own my magic and step in and be able to see myself clearly, like through my sessions and that too, to see the impact. Because every time I would have a session with someone, I could see the impact I was having. And that just instilled more and more belief into myself to really help me see my power. And so that was a big year. And also too, I guess like we started as a family too, moving further south and getting into warmer climates. My soul had been calling me to go somewhere warm and be somewhere warm, to allow myself to really expand, open, and no longer have to go into retreat mode, because I live in Ottawa normally and it's freezing cold in the wintertime. And so you like hermit for 6 months of the year. But even when we went out west, it just got too cold. And so it was really about like calling me back home to like heat and warmer climates. And we made the move down to Mexico, and that felt even more like home and heart opening. So I do feel like last year was a lot of like big like aha moments. I was like, oh, this is so validating. This is bringing me back home, like always bringing me back home, and just bringing me back to love too. I remember when we crossed over the border into Mexico, we were driving, and it was just like I was flooded with emotion. And the love pouring out of like this space was just so big. And it was just like it just felt like so long since I'd been somewhere, that there was just so much love in the nature and the people. You could just feel it as you're driving through these little communities, and you could just feel the love pouring out all around you. And I was just like, and it's winter here. So I'm like, and it still feels like immense amount of love. And it was just like, it was just insane. So it definitely is like a returning back, like home. And when I say home, not necessarily like Mexico is home, but just like returning to that feeling of love. And that calling back to ourselves, because that's what we are, limitless love, right?
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Her has all the feels right now.
It's like I have obviously being friends, like I know this story, but to hear you talk about it, it feels, like so much foundational shifts for you last year that I can see already. It's February, and it's like a lot is already transpiring for you, and it is about, communication and the connections and whatnot. So, exciting. Okay. One more opening question. What are your current deep dives about? Or like, what are you Googling and asking your guides about?
Ooh, that is a good one. I am like the deep dive queen. I swear, like I go into deep dives all the time, and I can go for a ride, and I love it. I really do love deep dives. But to be honest, this is the first time I haven't been really taking many deep dives. And it's very interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like as if I'm really stepping into being more of the observer. Like there's so much going on globally, and I'm so connected to that, but not attached to that. And my calling is to really hold that frequency of love, so that the collective can heal and open and surrender to what's coming up for them, as opposed to feel the fear of what's surfacing and the fear of where their life is going, and really truly surrendering. So I'm doing less deep dives as I'm just holding that love frequency and really surrendering it, like doing my best to personally surrender in the moment too. And so there's a lot less deep dives. So it's crazy, because for the first time, I'm not really deep diving into anything. At the same time, it's like January has been this overwhelming wave of information coming at me. I've been by the water a lot, and that's been really helpful. And I've been hanging out with the whales all the time. And so there's been so many wisdoms and energies poured into me and through me. And I feel like I've just kind of been like in this mode of soak it in, don't question, just allow yourself to experience. And that's also too what I'm echoing to my clients, like Don't try to seek clarity. Allow it to be what it is right now and trust and surrender. I think that first 3 years of awakening, I was constantly deep diving, searching for more clarity. And I really love and trust that process I had to go through. But now I'm surrendering a lot more. And I think I'm really stepping into surrender because I'm not searching for any clarity whatsoever. I'm just like, oh, okay. So, and not attaching to things and really trusting the process. We have so much going on behind the scenes, like here, and it's just like, I'm just going to trust and surrender that it's all, whatever it's meant to be, will be. And I don't have to work so hard as someone that was like workaholic and pusher and hustler and all these things that never felt aligned with me, but I did them anyway. It's really been a lot of deconditioning to get to this point. And I feel like for the first time, I'm truly just allowing my heart to be open, which is such a weird feeling, but a good, like returning feeling. But it's like, I can feel my chest even as I'm saying it, like opening up even more.
You know, that's so powerful because sometimes that's what people need to hear. And I know that's why this question came up. And that was your answer, because it does sound like, and your first line, we just talked about your profile and human design, and it sounds like the deconditioning of always needing to search for an answer or to search for more information, and trusting like the information you have right now, the information that's flowing to you is enough. And that's like, it can almost be related to imposter syndrome of like, I just need to know a little bit more. And you see it kind of in that sense too, but there is like this peace that comes over you when you know, like, I can stop consuming from all of these sources and trust that like what you're going to receive naturally, or you know, what the universe provides you is enough. And like, it's almost like being next to the ocean when you were describing that, is like that filled that cup for you, and you probably had energy and time to just focus in on the other things, instead of going down rabbit holes and needing to know more. So I think that's really powerful.
And I'd say too, like, I'd love to think that like this is, I think, the fallacy that we believe, like that we follow in that when we're in our journey. But it's like, I'd love to think that it was just like, okay, I got to this place where like my mind was calm with this, and I was just like, okay. But again, I was so supported by my mind and my body into this reality, because there has been, like I said, so much that we're doing. We have big plans as a family that we're working on. We're also in this beautiful spot for the first time in winter where we can thoroughly enjoy ourselves every single day. So it's like, okay, well, that takes time. And then I have all of these projects, all of these things that are being called to pour out of me, and I'm supporting other people. It was just like, there's so much too, that for the first time, I really had to sit with myself and say, well, okay, should I add another thing to my plate where I need to find answers, or is this time to slow down? And when we go to slow down, we often start like cutting out the major things out of our lives. And we're like, okay, I need to take things off my plate. I need to take this off my plate, take this off my plate. But for me, I'm like, well, no, these things came back to on my plate for a reason. What do I need to take off my plate? And it was the old mindsets and beliefs about the pushing and the needing to know and all of that. And it just, there was no time. Like, I was starting to get like feeling energetically drained, trying to do everything and know everything. Like, it's like, I can't do and know everything. It's like, kind of thing. So it's like, I had to surrender in some regards. So in a way, like, again, my body and my mind were supporting me and letting me know that, like, no, something you have to let go of something, but it doesn't have to be a physical thing. It's a way of being, an energy that it's time to let go of, and just trust, like you said, like where you are right now, and that everything you have right now is enough, and that you are enough. And we have this like tendency, because we can feel, probably everyone listening will get this, but like, we can feel the earth shifting, we can feel our internal energy shifting, and our fears though still creep in, where we're like, oh my gosh, it's not happening fast enough. And that was like my realization last year. I was like, oh gosh, the healers are not as open and as healed as they were supposed to be at this time. And I started getting like oh my gosh. And I'm like, you don't need to panic. It's going to be fine. Trust divine timing. But like, I was catching myself thinking those things. I'm like, we're not where we're supposed to be yet. But the reality is that's been the way it has been for millennia. We haven't been where we had hoped we would be collectively, but that's okay. And we trust that we will get there, and we're not going to get there if we don't trust. And so it really became like this whole like, let it go, Melissa,
Yeah.
let it go and trust. Really, like, again, the surrender has just been, but it's been those nudges physically, mentally, and I'm so aware now of my mind and my body. And if
Yeah.
I'm not aware, it shows up in the energy of my family, and I'm like, oh crap.
I was
Okay.
gonna say this is like awareness to a T, and like listening to your intuition, because like, yeah, like you said, like most people might want to cut out like, oh, I got to get rid of this task or like get support here, when it could just be a mindset shift, or like one like a simple shift that it doesn't cause a lot of chaos in your life or anything. So, I love your awareness.
Yeah, thank you. I have such great awareness now. But again, when I was not consciously aware, it was like totally different
Yeah.
story.
And I mean that's like the experience, right? Like you had, I mean, your need for information and research and that foundation of understanding is like there for a purpose, and it's always going to serve you. And it's a matter of when does it like cross that line where it's not serving you anymore. And that was like the realization or the awareness that dropped in. But like you wouldn't have had that awareness if you didn't have the experience of like overdoing it, right? And so it's like a blessing.
And it's cycles. I'll go back into a
Yeah.
cycle, I'm sure, where I will go and immerse myself like a lot. I have so many things I could immerse myself in. So there's like, I've got never ending courses and stuff that I've signed up for, and certifications and stuff like that. Like, there will be time to re-immerse myself in that,
Yeah.
but it is a cycle that I'm currently in the cycle of life. And it's having, like you said, having that awareness of what cycle you're in and trusting the cycle that you're in, and that you're exactly on the path you're meant to be. And you don't need to force it to get to somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're chasing, you're not being.
Yeah. I think about that with like the pressures of like completing things. I mean, like you said, you have all these courses, and I feel that way with like books, of like pressure to like finish this book because I started it. And it's like pressure to follow through with things because that's what I'm used to. And it's like, that they serve that commitment obviously serves a purpose until you're no long like until you're doing something that you no longer want to do.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, if I just slow down and ask myself, and that's where I started, at least, was like slowing down and asking myself, like, why am I doing this? And like, how is it serving me or my family or whoever? But really, how is it serving me? Like, do I want to be doing this? If you're that sacral response, it's like, do I want to do this? Or, and it seems so simple. And there's a lot of like the mindset and energies of like what we should do or what we're conditioned to do, and it's in our DNA too, if we've been committing to that, or our ancestors have been committing to that. And it's like it starts with awareness. So
I think there's so much magic in what you just said too, with your ancestors committing to that, because the unlearning process itself is so expansive and so in depth, and it's continuously unfolding. But there's been one thing that's just like calling to be shared, is that ancestral energy that you hold on to, because there's so many things like, and this is where like my ancestral energy is so big and so strong, and probably everybody listening to this podcast is going to have this similar, because they're obviously resonating with us, and so there's that similar kind of like lineage. But when you're growing up in this human form and you're in this lifetime, you don't know even understand where these energies come from. And most of the people that are listening to this are probably highly empathic and lived a lot of their life not even understanding the energies that they were feeling. And it can feel so confusing and so distant. And then, so like, I don't even know what to do with this, because it's not really an energy that you're fully embodying in this lifetime, because it's not yours, it's ancestral, and you're just carrying it over to like release it and help the lineage heal it. But it's not one that you're fully embodying. So it's really hard to like trace it back to your lifetime, but the energy is so strong that like can overcome you. And knowing that and bringing that into my awareness, that there's energies that are not mine, there's energies that are mine but are past life, because again, I didn't have a lot of big trauma in this lifetime. So it was really challenging to be able to start recognizing these energies that I had that I felt distant from, and realizing that those were valid, and realizing like, oh, these are things that are calling to be seen. It, but how do I even approach this? So I think that ancestral part is really a big one that kind of throws people for a loop, because a lot of us, even too, when we start awakening, we might not even connect to the fact that there's past lives or ancestral or the energetics that carry on. Like it's so many different ways of it all. I went off on a tangent.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Because I have a question from that. How you can, I would love to hear your experience too, because you mentioned your ancestors also being mediums and becoming aware of that. And so with some of maybe the energy or the even like mindset stuff that we pick up on, how do you recommend we start discerning, like, is this something from this lifetime, or is this something that is from my ancestors? How's your process with that? And like, if you could give us an insight on how you help people maybe identify this too, that would be awesome.
Yeah, this might not always work, but one method is I would ask myself if it was rational or not. So whatever energy was coming up for me, was it rational or was it an irrational reaction? And again, I'm not one for labels, but this just helps us understand the energetics of it. And like our human brain has been conditioned, so we know rational, irrational. So basically something that's irrational just means that there's less logic to it. So if it's like, I had this fear or these emotions, but I can't find a reason for it, like if I can't look at this lifetime that I've had and figure out, okay, well, why am I acting this way? Why is this making me feel this way? If I can't find a reason for that in what I can remember, that's a caveat, then possible it's past life energy or it's ancestral energy. The caveat is where if you have repressed emotions, repressed experiences, like if you've repressed childhood trauma or adolescent trauma or any kind of trauma, then you might not remember. And so you might think, okay, it's irrational, but you might not realize that it is trauma that you carry from this lifetime. The way I see it too is there's always going to be like a whisper, even if it's not yours and not this lifetime. If the root most is coming from a root prior to this lifetime. But there's always going to be an opportunity that presents in this lifetime for you to see it. And that can be very minute. And that's where too, as you go deeper on your healing journey and you start holding space for your inner child and earlier versions of you, then your heart opens and you hold more compassion. And that's when you can start to see the little moments too in your childhood, or the little patterns that might have presented so that you can see this trauma. Because your soul wouldn't ever choose to carry forward an energy that it wasn't capable of healing, didn't have experience with, didn't want to expand through. And so again, how it works in terms of lifetimes, there would be some kind of, something would come up and surface so that you could see, and you could see it and you could heal it. But again, so to start, if you do feel like you don't remember your childhood, because that was me, like I didn't feel like I remembered a lot. I remember being an early adult and my best friend talking about things that happened on our trip to Europe. And I was like, I don't remember. Why don't I remember these things? That's when I started, but I have a crazy great photographic memory. And I was like, why am I not remembering periods of my life? Why am I not remembering times? Why am I not remembering energies? And that's when I realized, well, I'm repressing things. Suppressing things. If we suppress anything, if we suppress our fear, or if we suppress our anger, we also suppress our joy. It's impossible. Like, you suppress energy, you suppress all energy. It doesn't mean you're not going to experience joy, you're not going to experience anger, but you're shoving it away. And when you suppress energy, you're suppressing memories. You're basically telling yourself that your experiences are not valid and are not worthy. So you lock it away, or I'm not safe enough to be in that energy. So you lock it away. And the moment you start locking away, you're basically locking up space around your heart. And that's why when I take like my clients on a soul healing journey, it's like we're opening up those layers. We're holding space for ourselves so we can heal that trauma, so that we can open our heart back up, so we can receive love and we can receive the abundance that is our natural state, because we start seeing ourselves as worthy and safe enough to be love energy. So if you feel like you don't remember stuff, start allowing yourself, like, you're not going to start remembering inner child memories that you suppress if you don't allow yourself to express your emotions right now in your current state. So start giving yourself space to flow, to feel whatever you're feeling, to validate your current experience and energy for yourself, not to get validation from anybody else. Give yourself space, allow it to flow, sit with yourself, talk to yourself, start holding yourself, because that's all you've ever wanted. It's not for anybody else to see you, to hear you, to feel you. It's for you to hear, see, and feel yourself. Because when you do that, the whole world feels you, because you're one. But no one can fill that void for you. You have to do it for yourself. So the more you start holding yourself, the more you feel safe to explore the things that as a child were scary or painful that you locked away. But if your current self can't hold space for yourself, your inner child's not going to trust you to hold space for yourself either. It's like a child will eventually give up knocking on its parents' door if they don't hold space, right? So if you're not holding space, they're going to be like, yeah, no, it ain't safe enough to come out. Yeah, I'm just going to hide in my room and play by myself. So that's what I would say. I would do that. I also use tools. Like I have a pendulum I love using to validate basic yes or no things. So I would say, is this energy mine? And it would tell me no or yes. So I use tools to validate myself until I feel some people have a really good inner knowing where they can put their hands on their heart and they say, is this my truth? Is it my energy? Some people can feel that, or they put it on their gut and they can feel that. Oh, did I freeze?
Yeah. I can still hear you. Okay.
Oh no. Okay. I had a blip or something.
Yeah. Okay, hold
What
on.
did you hear last?
I could hear everything.
Okay. I can just re-say my words again.
Go ahead.
Okay. Some people have a really good knowing. Like they can put their hands on their heart or their hands on their gut and they can know like a yes or no. I struggled with that. I remember you would always ask me like, how does it feel? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And the reason for that is because I ignored my physical body for so long that trusting my physical body was a healing process. So I turned to tools to validate, and I don't think and that's not something I heavily rely on, but it's just another tool in my toolbox. So you can always ask that. And a simple thing you can do is you can also trust in yourself and trust in your ancestors and trust in the universe. And I use this simple thing, like if the energy became too much, I would literally just say, I release what is no longer serving me. I release what is not mine, and I would shake it out. I would shake it out, and I would ask the universe to and I would ask my ancestors to take the burden, to take the energy and release what I didn't need. And I just blindly trusted that what didn't need to be was going to fade. And after shaking it off, if I physically felt better, then I also knew it wasn't mine. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing too, like, is your state rapidly changing? Because I used to take on energy galore from like my husband or my kids. And like all of a sudden I would start like having pain, like where my husband has his hernias, or I would have pain in my ankle. I'm like, is that my thing? That's not my pain. My ankle was not hurting a second ago. So that kind of awareness too, like, is there a rapid change
Hmm.
without a trigger, right? Without like a trigger of some sort. Like if you're just there and all of a sudden it's like a wave of emotion comes over you or physical pain comes over you, it's like,
Yeah.
is that actually me? Maybe not. So, and then if you ask it to leave and it leaves, but you have to trust yourself when you ask it to leave. You have to believe that, like, with conviction, that like, I am magical. I am in tune with my energy. I am trusting of the universe and I trust myself. And then it happens. You can say that's why like the affirmations and that don't work if you don't believe what you're saying
Right.
and don't believe you're worthy. So it's a process of that rebuilding that trust. Doesn't mean don't start saying it, because that's going to help you show the universe like, I'm showing up. I'm ready to start the work. I'm ready to start releasing, and it'll bit by bit start
Yes.
releasing.
Ooh.
That's a really long answer to that.
That was, but I'm gonna recap a little bit because there were so many good things in that. I loved the visual of like the walls around your heart, because you like we talk a lot about there's just a lot of language out there about heart healing, your heart chakra, and it's like having that visual of like, I mean, there's other things that can build walls around your heart, but it was nice to see like, okay, when you aren't able to express certain emotions as a child, or you're not shown how to express those emotions, because we've talked about this, similar childhoods, no big trauma necessarily, but it's like I've felt the resistance within myself to even express certain emotions, and having that visual of how that can limit like your trust in yourself, your confidence in like, do I know what my truth is, even like how do I remember things? I have the same experience where I I like don't know if that's my memory or if somebody told me that, and it's like scary almost to think like, why don't I remember stuff that just happened? And my Amy will, tell me like, this is what happened. Like no big deal. And connecting that to emotions, because our emotions is what creates the memory anyway. And so it's like, where was I not allowing myself to feel an emotion, to hold on to that memory? And then hearing you talk about it, it's like it's not lost, right? Like it's there somewhere, but there's an opportunity to heal, to open up that memory. And I remember we've talked about this in the past, but like you're not going to remember things that you don't need to remember, or like you're not ready to remember. And so for me, it was like hearing that part when I was working with you was like, I was able to just kind of release the fear of like, well, what if I remember something that I don't want to remember? Like you can set the boundaries around that. And so I loved the visual around the heart, and like, because yeah, it's energy. It's gonna like cling on to it anytime that emotion comes up and you haven't processed something from childhood. And then I'm a big believer of alone time, but it's like, how are you spending your alone time? Like, are you consuming? Are you on your phone? Like, it's like, no, this is like sit with yourself alone time and feel and like hug yourself. And yeah, I liked it was very like, if you're not ready to sit with yourself, then ask yourself those questions. Like, is this mine? But it is that trust of like, it's energy. And so you have to trust that the energy is going to go where it's attracted to, where it's flowing. And so like, if you're, saying like, release all this energy that's not mine, but there's a part of you that thinks like, oh, it might all be mine, or I don't know if it's really going to go away, then it's not,
And if
So
you still need it, it's going to stay, right? But
yeah.
some of the pressure might release, right? Some of the pressure might release, some of the fear might release, and it will feel different. So you might feel like, okay, it's gone. But then it creeps back in. You're like, oh, I thought this was gone. And then that's when you realize, okay, wait, maybe there is something here for me, because it really is that trust that like whatever is coming up for you is for you. Even if it's other people's energy,
Mm-hmm.
if it's coming into your space, it is coming for you. It's not like everything is a mirror and it's trying to show you a side of you that you're needing to see. And again, if you're not ready, that's okay, because you're going to get another opportunity and another opportunity and another opportunity. But each time that you get introduced to it, it's making you feel safer. And that's why the planting of the seed works. It's these tiny activations and releases that are happening on the subconscious level that you don't even realize, that are preparing you for the moment when you're like, okay, I'm ready to sit with this. I'm ready to see what this is. And so we really have to trust, and trusting too that, like, again, we get in this talk about like how like the mind is suppressing, or the mind is like controlling. And it's like, well, no, the mind is serving you. And like it's protecting you, because in your current physical limit, like capacity too, based on, again, your conditioning, your upbringing. Were you taught how to release energy and hold space for yourself? Most of us were not. Very few were. But the times are shifting, and now we're raising children that feel safe to express themselves and feel safe to allow whatever energy is coming through for them. So we're shifting that right now. But it's important that, like, again, we trust the process that we underwent, that our physical bodies did. Like, we trust that it was suppressing, and that served us too. Sometimes when we look back, we're like, oh, I suppressed, that was bad. I suppressed, that was bad. That was bad. No, everything is happening for your highest good. That was helping you. There was more lessons you needed to learn. That was part of your journey. And the moment you open your heart to accepting that as well, that your mind was guiding you, your body was guiding you. It might have felt closed, but everything was guiding you and helping you and serving you in that moment. When you start trusting that, you're opening that heart up to yourself. You have to start believing that your mind, your body, and your soul always have your best interests at heart. And however things are playing out is the way it was meant to be for your highest alignment. So it's less about control, more about flow and trust in what's happening for us. And even trusting the conditioning, because we chose these lifetimes, for crying out loud. We chose the traumas, and that can be hard to hear, but we chose that for our growth. For our soul expansion. And we wouldn't have chosen anything that we were not capable of growing through. So that's that trust in yourself, that no matter what, how bad it was, your soul chose that because your soul has a love so big that it can heal through something so hard. So it's really a deep surrender and a deep trust.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. I'm like still processing some of what you just said. When you started talking about the ego, I was thinking that, of course, I've worked with you on several occasions and over the years, and even just as friends, the work that we do together, it doesn't stop. But, we did a lot of mindset healing, and really just like gratitude for our ego is what it comes down to. And that's become like a daily practice for me, because when I think about, how conditioned we are to rely on making sense of things, proving things, and using our ego to, stay safe and feel safe. And it's like, I feel like at our generation, it was heavily, focused on, of course. And so for me, it's still a daily thing, because I will fall back and like recognize, I'm like, what am I even doing if I'm just letting myself operate from the ego? But I've also tried, there's the ego death, there's the ego's bad, there's all these things out there that you can dip into and see if that's your truth or not. And I recognize, like, my ego has served me so much, and now I can be grateful for it and thank it for, serving me in this way. But then also having a conversation with my ego and saying, like, it's okay to step down in this area or in this moment. Like, I will ask my higher self to just kind of relieve the thoughts that my ego is bringing forward and allow my intuition or my higher self to speak louder. And like turn it, like I think of them as like dials, and like you can like turn up your ego when you need to, right? Like there's situations where you're like, I need to be really logistical about this, and our minds are great for that. And there's other times where I'm just hanging out and I really don't care what my mind's thinking about, and I'll turn it way down. So it's like finding that balance. And like I know that analogy or like that visual might not work for everyone, but I think it's a matter of like, I know one of your courses, it's like in healing mind, body, and soul. And it's like it's going to look different for everyone, because everyone has like this like different ways of connecting with their soul, different ways of connecting with their body. And you're so very connected with your physical body, where mine is a little like very connected, but just I receive things differently. And so our mind, like, and the same with our minds. We were talking about having the inner dialogue, and I just think like we all operate so differently in each of those capacities. And then when you put them together, like they all operate differently. So like finding how, like, sending love to your mind, body, and soul, bringing them back to union in a healed way. And it's going to look different for everyone. But like having these tools and ideas like laid out is like for our kids, right? Like we need to learn this, but also like this is for the next generation too, because they don't have to wait till they're in their 20s, 30s to figure out like, oh, there's other operating systems that we can tap into.
Yeah. And teaching them how to heal the like the traumas now and not carry it. How it's their choice to carry it. I think that's the thing, really bringing a level of consciousness to our children, because the reality is every single thing in this lifetime has been a choice. But we feel like the victims in our lives. We don't feel like it's been a choice, but it's always been a choice, whether you've been conscious of the choice or not, because what you think, how you act, how you respond, those are all choices. And where with our children, we're allowing them to see the consciousness of their choices. So I know with mine, like they're becoming very conscious. I'm not telling them how they need to behave, how they need to act, but I'm bringing them back to in every moment. How does this feel in your heart? That's again, how I connect to truth, is through the heart space mostly. I'm like, does it feel like love, like joy? And if the answer is no, then that's not their truth. And then it's not that like, okay, well, you can't act out of alignment because you got to be this like this perfect person. Like, no, they're here to experience their journey in their unique way. And they have lessons to learn. And that's a huge sacrifice and surrender as a parent to not try to like bubble wrap or control your child, to allow them to journey through their lessons and trust that they are so guided and supported too by people other than you. But asking them that and then saying like, well, this is your choice, bud. You can choose how you want to behave. Do you want to act out of a way from that makes you feel love in your heart, or do you want to act from fear? And whatever you choose, it's okay. And I'm going to support you and hold you either way. And I'm going to keep guiding you and being there for you no matter what. I love you unconditionally, no matter what you do. And that's what love is unconditional, no judgment over our actions, over our words, over the world, over ourselves or anybody else. It's about bringing conscious awareness to the energies and seeing and being able to understand that all along you've had choice, and now you can consciously choose what you want to do. And I think that's where too the mind is such this gift, and the world is starting to shift. And the way I see it too, and you know me, I'm like I'm not one for labels, and I'm the ego death never felt true for me. All of that, like I was always like you cut off your head while you're dead. Like you can't, like it's mind, body, soul. You can't just be like, mind, you're going in the bin. I think people, like, if we really want to start healing that connection to our mind, we have to realize that the ego is the mind. It is one and the same, and it's not this evil thing that's keeping us stuck. It's been guiding us all along. And even within the ego, we have this very masculine energy driven like view of the mind. But if we are this harmonious flow of divine masculine and divine feminine energy, it is my truth that every part of us has that divine masculine and that divine feminine. So where is the divine feminine in the mind? And remember too, when there's divine feminine, divine masculine, there's also wounded masculine and wounded feminine. So what energy are you choosing to act from? And how can we allow that flow? If you look at the mind, it's our crown chakra, our connection to source, our angels, our every version of ourself. That's not a bad thing. Like,
Yeah.
how could that, not that there's a good or a bad thing, but that's just, there's so much magic here that when we go criticizing the mind or the ego, because again, people don't criticize the mind so much, they criticize the ego, what they've identified to be the mind. They've created this whole persona, this whole villain, the devil on the shoulder. Like, they've created this whole thing, this whole imagery. But when you say, like, that's not worthy, that's wrong, you are cutting your connection to source. And that is what people that, like, and it's not that people don't want us to grow. Deep down, I don't believe that's anybody's truth. But if people are acting out of fear and they want to control a population, or they don't want us to grow, they're going to tell you that this is your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you cut off the mind, like I told you, you suppress anything, you suppress it all. So if you cut off the mind, you're cutting off your connection to source and your higher self, your higher heart, like everything, your high, like your, what's it called? The star chakra that's up here, like everything, you're cutting that off.
Yeah. You know, well, we've talked about this before. I'm not really surrounded by people who I think there's the language and energy behind it that gets really caught up, like gets people caught up. Because I think people will say things with different like the words don't match the energy. And
No.
I think that's also interesting that like that's where it's coming up for our mind, right? Because we have this language that we want to find meaning with, but what is the energy behind it? And I'm connected with some people who, you know, use the words ego death, and but it's from the energy is more of like the rebirth. Like I'm going to like brain rewiring, right? There it's kind of like that where this mindset, this belief, this thing in my mind is shifting and it feels like a rebirth. And that's where this ego death comes from. And then there's the other side where it's like, nope, it's bad. And it's like that's what I don't even have that in my aura, really, that energy, and I'm very thankful for that. And I know you've been exposed to it for the reason of saying this different perspective, which is what we need, because I 100% agree. Like you can't just say your mind is no good. Like it's protecting you, for one, as a human. So it's so interesting because just there was something else you said that instigated a question, and it escaped me. It will come back, but it's just interesting how a lot of there's different spaces that you can enter. And this is why, like, even going back to what energy is yours, it's the same with like beliefs or ideas. Like if you're listening to this podcast, like I'm always going to encourage you to take it away and discern, like sit with yourself and discern, like, what is my truth? Because there's not enough of that, and there's not enough of that in the world in general. And that's why when I say it, like alone time, that's where you don't consume, because then you have that space to reflect and say, like, is this my truth? And it's dangerous when there's so like you can access so much energy or so much information nowadays, right? And then like there's these really large accounts on social media that will just throw things out there, and because it's this large account or they've said something that resonated with you before, you take it on as your truth. And it's just, that's where it gets real muddy, and that's where you're not connecting with your intuition, and that's where we can all like pick up new beliefs that aren't your truth, and that's the opposite of like what we're trying to do. So,
And it doesn't mean it's not their truth. Like whoever's saying it doesn't
right.
mean it could be like, and I've definitely come across like when I'm, because I do follow some big accounts still, and it's like I will come across their stuff, and then I'm like, ooh, that is not in alignment with their own energy. So it's like I can recognize that what they're sharing is not their truth, but then I also respect the fact that they're also just being this messenger for this information, and they're trusting that that is what they're needing to say, even if it's not their truth, because I've definitely said things that were not my truth, and I could feel it not in alignment. And I was like, do I not share or do I share? But if I'm not sharing, if I'm feeling the call to share and then I suppress that, then I'm not trusting the path, and I'm not trusting the need for that information to surface. There was something that you said. oh, one, like a full circle thing when you talked about, again, like with like the energy, like, is this mine, is this not mine, and that there was just in my head, it was just like saying oneness, and
Mm.
that's, it brings it back to like everything's your energy because we're one. So we sometimes feel like we look at like the angels or our higher self, well, they're all you. Even the
Mhm.
angels
Mhm.
are you. God, like, it is all you. You are the embodiment of source. Like, you are the embodiment of God. You are like a fractal of God, like here in this experience right now, or source or universe, whatever feels comfortable for you right now. And that's the other thing too, is your truth is the only thing that matters,
Mhm.
because you're here experiencing, and all you can do is choose your own experience, nobody else's. So your truth is the only one that matters. And even if like your truth doesn't align with that, but you feel like you feel the pull to that energy, but it's not your truth, like, trust the pull, but trust your truth, because your truth is the only one that matters. And that's going to shift and evolve and open up as you do, because my truth has shifted so much. Like, I'm don't even want to, sometimes I'm like, I don't even want to go back and look at things I used to say, but that, even what I shared before, can still help someone that is their current truth, and trusting that process, because we're all here experiencing on our own scale. Like, it's all our own little reality, but it's all connected. But we have to trust our truth, because that's the only thing that we can shift.
Right. And
One thing we are here to shift. Like, we do shift the world too, while we shift our truth, and while we shift it and we heal, because we're all one. But your experience is yours alone, and that's why your truth is the only one that matters. And that, trusting that, is rebuilding that trust within yourself and that trust within God.
yeah. Yeah. And that reminds me, because like I, even with that conversation, I I recognized like there was judgment of why people say things, like there's just like, oh, it doesn't resonate with me. I'm very much like, I'm very clear on what resonates with me and what doesn't. Like I do this
I
all the
love
time,
that.
all day long. And so if it doesn't, it's not like I'm like it's not automatic judgment, of course, but there is that human kind of like, well, why would they say that? Like it just, like you said, sometimes you'll see something and like I don't even think they believe that.
Right.
But I also remember like people, like things need to be out there, even if it's so extreme and maybe not your truth. Like I'm like, who are they activating? Like they're expanding someone in that, and that is where I need to find, like that's where I can find like the love and the intention behind it that feels better in my heart, right? Like, because I do kind of question, like, I love hearing other people's perspectives. I love hearing perspectives that, like, I don't agree with, because it just allows me to see the world in somebody else's shoes. And so I do think, like, what were they thinking? Or, like, what intention was, coming across with this? And I remember, like, some people who might be not like maybe not spiritual, maybe not awakening, they might resonate with that ego death thing. And that might be what awakens them. And then they go through their process with their own relationship with their ego. And who am I to judge or like sit here and dwell on this isn't my truth? So, and that's where like I think this kind of leads into my next question, but detaching from like what you hear, energetic detachment, like from your environment, of course, and just detaching from perspectives and like coming back to yourself, of course, is so important. But it's easy, like me, I just recognize like, oh, there was a little bit of like disconnection from me and people who might talk about ego deaths, and then remembering like there's nothing wrong or right about people who bring these conversations to the world, even if I don't find the value in them. And so like I guess, how does this play with, I want to hear you talk about, there's like healing, but you still are kind of like focused on like you still are carrying that fear and judgment, whether it's within yourself or people around you. And then there's healing that you're really healing with love. Like I know, like for me, it was a stepping stone almost. Like I had to step into healing, and then I had this like awakening well, awakenings after that about love. I'm like, I feel like I'm always learning. Like, no, love is actually like this. Like, nope, it's actually like this. Like, because different scenarios.
It becomes
So
more
it's
expansive
like,
the more you dig into it. Like so it feels different and bigger every time you crack open a little bit more.
yeah, like it's like I feel like you can start cracking open and then you become really aware of like the assumptions and the expectations and the judgment and the fear from the beliefs or the conditioning that we've had, and right, and you heal that, but there's, well, we talk about the layers all the time, and so it's like, how do we help people, how do we connect with love? Like, what is our reminders of connecting with love? What are some indicators where we're not connected with love? And how can, like, I know for me, I believe that you can decide to shift. Like, I can decide in any moment to shift to love or to reframe this situation, this perspective, this whatever, to love. Like, I don't it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to take 21 days, you know.
Right.
Um, I think it can be a shift. And so assuming that I'm going to share that perspective right now, like, what would you, I guess just you can go off and just kind of say, like, recognizing that fear and judgment or fear underlying tones versus shifting it to love. And
Well, like you said, everything is energy. So you can choose in any moment what energy you want to embody. And obviously awareness is a requirement for conscious choice. You choosing, like I said, you're choosing all of them, whether you're conscious of it or not. But awareness is required to make conscious choice. So being an observer of the energies, an observer of yourself, helps you bring that awareness, and then you have that choice. Now, holding the frequency of love is a different story, and that's kind of where, if we're talking about like the spiritual world and the community, people talking about like 3D, 5D, and all that, there's a lot of people talking about 5D energy, which is non-judgment, unconditional love, and that stepping stone into those higher realms. But then they're not holding that frequency, and that's why they continue to share things that hold a lot of judgment. And you can see the judgment, you can see it as their own too. It's not just like a message that's not in alignment. You can see the judgment in what they're saying, in the judgment they hold over themselves, because whatever you're saying, it's what you're holding over yourself, the energy you feel about yourself. So you can see that. So it's your capacity to hold unconditional love and to hold that frequency is dependent on your energetic vibration. And so, and because we've been conditioned, our vibration has lowered. A lot of souls are still super connected. Starseeds are super connected to their unconditional love frequency because they've been higher vibrational frequency more recently for longer periods than, say, earth souls that have been living on a 3D, 4D plane for a long time. So their energetic resting state is higher. So they have that stronger remembrance and connection to love. So it's like they feel it, but then it becomes a choice to embody it. But when you're here having this experience on earth, and you're here to learn lessons, you're here to experience and expand your soul, you have traumas, and you can't deny the fact that you have traumas and you have conditioning and that, and you're here to heal that. You're not here to bypass anything, because if those still exist within your energetic system, like I said, it's another wall over your heart that's holding that heart space and holding your vibration at a certain point that doesn't allow you to sit at that higher frequency of unconditional love. So you'll experience moments of pure bliss, pure joy, pure non-judgment, but then you'll retreat back to your resting state, which is dependent on you removing the barriers around your own energetic system. When you remove those barriers around your own energetic system of all the energies you've suppressed by choice, through your traumas and your experiences and your conditioning and your subconscious choices and your conscious choices, then when you peel those away, that's when you become that open channel and you can hold that high vibration of unconditional love. So it is a choice in that. Now, when it comes to judgment, I love to go like very big picture and then dial back in all the time, because it's really important to understand that you are not just one soul. You are all souls. You are part of the whole. And so there's a lot of energy at play. It is not all up to you. Like, you are contributing, you are one. But there's a lot out there. So it's really important to see the big picture, but and also start looking too at like the big picture of judgment. Again, you can't heal judgment by judging judgment either.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, like, and that was one of the big like awakenings for me when I was really to step into my soul purpose of being that embodiment of love here and teaching people how to reconnect to love, was noticing when people were still hating on themselves or hating on others. I'm like, you can't heal through hate or anger. Love is always the answer. Love is what heals. Love is what, and it's not even that. It's sometimes I start shifting to how I talk about it. It's not even just like healing. Healing and expansion is the same thing, where here's a soul to expand. The only reason why we have to heal is because we suppress. We could have just expanded through the moments, but we suppress. So now we got to heal through the moments, but they're the two of the same thing. It's just our response is what is the difference. And that's why trauma experts will say it's not the trauma, it's how you respond to the trauma that becomes the issue. Because it's not the trauma, it's how you respond to it. So if we can start releasing the judgment around judgment, because here's the thing, if you're getting caught up with like, oh, if you don't allow and respect the fact that you hold judgment because of your conditioning and your choices, be them conscious or not, if you can't hold space for yourself in the fact that you hold judgment, you're not going to heal the judgmental energy you hold within yourself. You gotta, it's like, I know it sounds kind of like an oxymoron, but you gotta like release the judgment around the fact that you are judging.
Yeah.
And start holding that space for yourself.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
100%.
And
So
start open, like allow those energies to come up. Again, we've been told you can't be angry. We've been told you can't be angry. That is unacceptable behavior. That is bad behavior. Bad girl. Good girl. Behave like this. No, they're all valid. There is no good or bad energy. So like we start realizing unconditional love means there is no right or wrong. And I just have to keep reminding myself that unconditional love, retrain my brain, means there's no right or wrong. Everything just is. It is just energy. All are worthy of love. It doesn't matter what I do, what I say, I'm always worthy of love. That is truth. Undeniable.
Yeah.
I'm always safe. I'm always worthy of love. That is a vibration that I can connect through the frequency of love, through source. Doesn't mean I don't experience things on earth. I chose to come experience these things, but what do they teach me? So if it's not right or wrong, I just had to start, okay, it's not right or wrong, and start trying to hold space. But hold space, okay, well, why am I judging this? Where does that judgment come from? Where did I learn this belief? Where did I suppress that energy? And really, again, like you said, sit with myself and start doing some deep inner work and looking at like where these stories even came from that I have and that I hold, and allowing myself to, but giving myself as well that space to hold that judgment and then not criticize myself for it, because we tend to then feel guilt and shame for judging. But then that goes through this negative spiral where we're never holding love for ourselves. We're seeing our actions as being bad when they're not. They're just energy.
I feel like there's so much popping up in my head about judgment, and I know it's personal for me. It's interesting. I've been like labeled as judgmental, and so it's been a trigger for me. And I guess like Virgo energy, like also judgmental apparently. And there's a long disconnect for me because I never identified as that, but like hearing people say that, it's been almost like, oh, but what that did for me was actually show me how much I'm judging myself. It's not necessarily externally. And so talking about judging, I think that's such a great like indicator of something to be curious about. And then when you were talking about like 3D, 5D, I know there's a lot of talk about like we need to get to 5D. And I think for me, like my perspective, like the collective needs to. And I think like for me, the way I see it is like the collective needs to know that they have access, like they're multidimensional. Like we're not, like Earth is not 5D, right? Like it's right now it's 3D, and we're here, and like that's one like way of thinking. Like there's hierarchy, there's right and wrong, there's, you know, like in the 3D there's that duality, the contrast. And then you get like, you can start going up, and it's not like 4D or 5D is any better per se, right? Because like that would be so silly to think, oh, 5D is better, when 5D is literally, there's nothing right or wrong, like there's not good or bad, so it can't be better. So if you're in 5D consciousness, or like, yeah, in that energy, like there's no judgment. So when I'm here as my human and I'm like, oh, I'm judging, like I feel myself judging, whether it's myself or something else, where I see that choice is like, okay, let me just try on a different perspective. It's not like I have to change anything within me. I can choose a different belief, but I can just like, my 5D self would look at it like, you know, the conversation about why do people share about these things that like might not even resonate with themselves. And it's like, oh, it does serve a purpose, right? Like that information had to be out there. Maybe it's activating a certain group of people that I'm not meant to activate. And so it's like, you can try on these different perspectives and like have access to them. And that's what I feel like is like the healing, like, right? Like I'm meant to be judgmental at times. I like, that's what I entered in. Like, do I want to live in that? No. Because I prefer to live it with that unconditional love, of course. But it's like, so what is those experience where like you are low vibrational, like it's just more information is the way I like to view it, is like, what can I learn from this? How can I learn about myself from this, and what's ready to be healed?
And there's so much that comes with being in this 3-dimensional space that we don't have. And that's where too, it's again, seeing the bigger picture. The coming to earth is one of the biggest gifts and experiences. And it takes a lot of work for a soul to be able to come from a higher dimension to earth. Like it is a huge kudos, a huge like celebratory moment to your abilities and gifts as a soul that you can incarnate here on earth, especially if you are starseed and you feel like you've been in other places that you're like, oh, it's more harmonious. You're only feeling that way because you're living in 3D. You're living in the judgment right now.
Right.
All
You have the duality, like
yeah.
you as your human form, you can see, or like you have the opinion of this might be better than this.
Yeah.
And
But the reality is there's so many experiences here that on earth we get to experience that we don't get to experience in the higher realms. We get to experience the pleasure of working with the lower chakras, which we don't in the higher realms. Those chakras have become obsolete. So here you get to eat food, taste things, digest, whatever it be, like whatever you're connected to, like those really animalistic, like innate to earth, like sexual pleasure, all of that, those lower chakra things, the experience of touch and stuff, things that we don't have that kind of connection when we are in a light body. Like we don't touch in a light body in the same way that we have all these receptors in humans. So it's such a wild experience to be here and to be able to feel so much that we don't feel. We feel a lot in other realms, but it's just a different way of feeling. So when you can bring that love and appreciation for what you're getting to experience here and to fully be present and enjoy life and the pleasures of earth and the pleasures of the human body and the human experience, it really shifts your mind. There's two quick things I'll say, like when you talked about, again, other people and the message that they're delivering, we have to understand that the masses are in the 3D space right now. So they're not going to resonate with a higher frequency message of unconditional love, which is why I don't resonate with everybody like right now. And eventually, yes, but right now, no, because most are living in that 3D like space that's very polarity, very polarized, where we've been taught right or wrong, good, bad, black, white, blah, blah. Like we forget that they're both part of the whole and they're all equal and they're all worthy. So to reach the masses and to help the masses shift, we need to reach them at an energy that is not too high above their energetic vibration. If it goes above, too far above, it's going to go over their head, or it's going to cause them physical damage to their mind or to their body because they can't resonate with that energy. And then it becomes like a toxin in a way to their body. It just becomes too much. It's like overload, system shuts off, soul leaves. Death, like literally. Mind, like your mind breaks, you have a mental break, and you escape your body, essentially. You escape your human experience and you're now in a mental lapse, or your physical body craps out on you because it's too much, and then your physical body gets sick and then you end up dying. So you can't overload this human system. We have to respect that the human experience comes with this mind and comes with this physical body, elements that we don't have in other realms. And so it's really this appreciation of it all and this harmonization of it all to bring that love. I can't remember, there was a third thing, but I don't remember what it was. So it's out the door.
It's okay. That is so beautiful. Like this is your love energy, like coming through, because I remember like one time I messaged you and I was like, I had this huge emotional breakdown and I don't know, I went into details and your response was like, how beautiful that you can feel so much about that. And I was like, you're right.
And that's
like, you're right. I didn't even think about that. Like, I was so caught up on the feelings that Melissa just comes in, you just come in and you're like, that's so beautiful that you get to feel that.
yeah, celebrate
that perspective though, like it seems so simple, but that one comment made me like zoom all the way out. And I was like, the situations that are like quote unquote triggering me or like making the feeling like really known are there's that's facts. Like I can see that. But like zooming way out is the fact that, okay, this emotion is showing me something bigger than these triggers. And I get to be here experiencing that. Like I chose to be here and experiencing that. And like, it doesn't like, I used to have a lot of frustrations with emotions and like, why do I have to feel this? Like it's an inconvenience, right? And it just kind of removes that frustration and that like angst of I need to get out of this feeling or I need to shove it down. It really just that zooming out of like, I get to be here and experience whatever emotion it is. And the more you can surrender to that, it doesn't make it easier, but it's like that is love.
It does make it like it feels easier, but it doesn't mean that's like it's not going to be as like it doesn't mean it's going to be less painful or less expansive, or it's just you kind of know what to expect in a way, so it makes it seem more comfortable, more safe. I did remember I want to share it because it was about your judgment and being labeled as judgmental. And this is where I want, if anybody has been labeled as something and it triggers you, and so that's your truth, and you're like, okay, that is an energy I hold, I want you to realize, again, this goes back to the whole, the sum of like all parts. If in your fear, because that's the thing, your only judgmental comes from a place of fear. So when you are in your fear and acting from your lower vibration, which comes from your feeling of feeling unsafe or feeling unworthy, and your disconnect from your love frequency, that's where judgment comes through. But if that is a trait that runs strongly for you, because not everybody has it, some people are really not judgmental at all and they couldn't be bothered and they're just like, meh. But if that runs really strong for you and you find yourself, you have these moments where you're very judgmental because, hey, ho, I've been there. It's because you hold the polar opposite of that magnitude. So you could be extremely judgmental in some moments because your heart is so big and your connection to unconditional love is so strong that when you go in shadow, sure, yeah, heck, man, you could be the most judgmental bitch around. But like, you are the opposite. You are the space holder. You are the love bearer. You are the one that loves everybody no matter what. It's about remembering that you hold both energies. Mm-hmm. And that you can reconnect and you can choose whichever one. And when you're choosing that lower vibration, it's for a reason, because there is something that is still holding on to you. There's an attachment, a pain, a sorrow, a version of you that still needs to be held and to be in a lesson that needs to be learned though through that. It's not that we just have these traumas and we just need to like hold ourselves and feel ourselves. There's a lesson in them too. And that helps us expand, and that helps your expansion for non-judgment come in, because that's the opposite, right? Judgment, non-judgment, or judgment, non-judgment. So you are the most non-judgmental person that there is. If you are the most judgmental, you are also the most non-judgmental person. So it's just about again, freeing away the attachment so that you become that sovereign being again. Well, see that you are that sovereign being, that you can choose whatever energy at any point in time. And again, when you're connected to love frequency, you don't feel fear, you trust what's happening for you. Like, you're not feeling the pain and the sorrow, so you can choose and you'll act in alignment. That's the whole thing of like, hurt people because, yeah, they're hurting, they're living in fear. So we will say something that is hurtful because we are in fear right now. We're in literally panic, fight or flight mode. So like, we can't act from a place of love and trust when we're fight or flight. The human existence doesn't work in that way either. So that's where, again, coming to earth is like one of the best gifts that we have. And I just want to scream it from the rooftops. Yeah. That like when I first started waking, I was like, take me home, take me home, take me home, take me back. I need to go back to play these. But like, now I'm like, oh my gosh, no, like, if the moment I want to escape, it's I'm escaping my experience, I'm escaping my being. I don't trust myself, I don't trust love, I don't trust that I am love and I am here and I can be that love no matter where I am. That is like, that's my biggest gift. Like, and that
and sharing that is amazing, because that was awesome. Like, thank you, because that was applicable for me. And that's why I think, when I was even talking about it earlier, I was like, I don't always resonate with that. Like, there are times where I'm like, oh, I'm like, why do I even think like this? Like, judgmental, and that's where I'm judging being judgmental. But then there's times where I'm like, I am not. Like, I resonate with both. And so you're talking about that spectrum of like, if you're identifying with this, that's because you have the duality of that, and that's the human experience, like, in itself. So thank you for that, because I needed that reminder. And
you're so welcome.
Every time we talk, you give me gold. Oh, what?
And thank you for helping me express that goal. Again, everything is co-creation, right? And the magic flows out of me because of the prompts and the energy that you bring. And it allows me to see myself and you at the same time. And again, we're all one. And when you're holding that judgment over yourself for being judgmental, I've been there where I kept holding that judgment over myself for being judgmental. And now it's like this whole like, again, because I'm this unconditional love being through and through. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see when I'm not.
You know what? Like, right now, I feel a huge energetic release, because it takes energy to hold on to this thing of like this belief, even of, I need to not be judgmental, because people say that and it feels like it's a bad thing, but like, there's a purpose in having my opinions and comparing them to others, right? And so just like coming home to like, the way I am is enough. And so thank you. That was, I feel like that's going to be the piece that hits a lot of people, because even if they're not outwardly judgmental, I know a lot of people hold judgments on themselves, especially when you start becoming aware and healing. And it's like, there's so much information that it's like, just remember, I take time almost every day to just send myself forgiveness and love, because it's like, our mind and like patterns of holding on to so like me personally, I'm going to talk about, is it's so, I can pick up judgments on myself so quickly, and I don't realize that. So like, every day, if I'm just like, usually at the end of the day, I'll like forgive myself for holding judgment and for having these beliefs that are not my truth, and releasing them as part of like my grounding at night. But this is just like another layer revealed for me. So thank you. Okay. I'm feeling like really complete. We're gonna wrap up just with some questions, so we don't just cut everyone off of all this goodness. I'm gonna re-listen to this, because I feel like there are so many things that I want to hear again. Okay, I want to hear just kind of big visions for what's coming up for you. You don't have to give specifics or anything, but what you're excited about, what, I guess, like, what energies are around you right now that are lighting you up and you're ready to like carry forward? We talked a little bit about it with like your personal year. But I guess, like, what are you most excited about? This could be in your business, with your family, with your spiritual healing journey on your own, whatever you want to share.
This year again, it's really about relationships this year for me. So really bringing that in. Obviously, like love is a huge thing. It's like that returning to love in that frequency, that depth, like that is a big thing for me this year. Hence why I'm launching that, like my new offering all around returning to love. But it's like, and that's what the last year was all about for me, like, right, like, so what I'm bringing and the wisdoms I'm pouring into my community and into the world is coming from where I had been growing for, when we say the last year, it's like my last many millions of lifetimes, like not really my last physical human year, but it does help us relate, right, when we look at our human years. But I think this year, again, with being a year two, is really about these relationships. And so down the road, where I see coming through and where energy will shift is through like relationships, like the romantic union, relationship as like the mother. That's a big energy that's pouring through a lot for me right now, is the mother energy. And it makes a lot of sense too. And just a shift of the world and where we're going and how we are needing, if we want to shift, to needing to mother ourselves. And it's through our mother, like our motherhood experience, that we learn to reconnect to that mothering of ourselves and allowing that unconditional love. The mother, you look at earth, is unconditional love. Like the earth is so, like, when she doesn't need us, like she is so, like she herself is, I don't even know what D she is, like she, like the earth is love, unlimited like frequency. And that's where you can, when you connect to earth, you just feel that love pour in so much. But that's that nurturing of the mother. We look at the divine feminine, the mother, the holy mother, like that is the, there's really coming forward this year, because that's what's needed. We cannot shift globally from a place, again, of judgment, and the holy mother does not judge. And so if we want all souls, be the masculine or feminine, to feel safe enough to on their journey, they need to feel held and supported. They need to start connecting to that unconditional love and that worthiness. And that's where the mother comes in. So I do see a lot of shifting around motherhood, and which will obviously bring like a lot of healing within like rearing children. Mm-hmm. Like that. So I see the energy shifting there. And I know we've talked about this too, because we foresaw this coming, like motherhood stuff, and last year. And again, it's just that trust the timing of everything. But that is probably, yeah, that returning to love, but now within like relationships too, and how you relate to yourself in those roles, and not roles, but in those energies. Essentially, that's going to be my big focus, I think, this year. Obviously, continuing all the rest I do, but allowing that energy to start pouring in. And I see that in my clients too. And my clients show up and it's like, oh, mother stuff coming. I'm like, yeah, me too, in my personal life as well. Big like motherhood shifts and heart opening shifts. I'm like, okay, the mother is what is coming through for us.
Yes, I feel that. And I had this thought the other day that last year was universal year 6, which was a lot about relationships. And I did experience a lot of shifts in relationships, but what I noticed was like what it felt like, I guess, was like preparation. Like it was like we had to go through these relational experiences that maybe caused relationships to end or new relationships to come in, which was that 6-year energy. But I felt like the timing of the 6-year energy, like 2021, was obviously divine because I'm like, okay, now because of experiences through that 6-year, now it's like, oh, we have this awareness, we have this knowing, the knowings from the experiences to shift these things. And I feel like by the time, so we're in a 7-year, so like 2 more years will be the end of the cycle, so like we'll be in a 9-year, and I feel like that's where we'll really see some of the systems and some of like foundational things shift in our society about relationships, about parenting, because I like, not everything gets like, who are we to think that everything has to happen in that year? But I feel like the 6-year really set us up to start making these changes and bringing in the healing in our relationships. And I think over the next 3 years, we're really going to see systems and beliefs shifting on a larger scale, for sure.
Absolutely. Earth experience in general is how we experience lessons and growth through Earth is through relationships. And so it last year was a big shakeup for a lot of people and a lot of trauma in relationships and a lot of, but there's still a lot of like judgment, anger, low vibrational energy, attachments, all of that to that. And this desire, this, you have that, and then you have the polar opposite, which is the wanting to escape, the escapee mindset. So it's like they're going to extremes, which is what we do here on Earth. We polarize and we go to extremes. So there's a lot of the polarity. But this year being a year 7 is where people are going to start spiritually awakening. And that's like, I can talk about like when it comes to relationships, that was the start of my spiritual awakening. I'd have to go back and look at the year.
Yeah, that would be
Fire,
so interesting.
I think it was a year 6, but that was when I felt like all my relationships were like crumbling and were all like in flames, and there was so much fear around relationships and everything. And it was then when I had my spiritual awakening, I realized shit, everything's a reflection of me. I was like, oh crap, what did this do to me? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is all my shit. This is all my shit. This is all my energy. What can I do? Like, this is all, and that's all that matters. It's my energy, no one else's. Like, and so I'm like, okay. And that's when the spiritual awakening is, when you start to see that, and you start to see the power and the magic that lies within you, and you start opening yourself up to, okay, I'm going to dive in. And then you go through the years 8 to 9 that continue your transitional years as you awaken. And that's when you start to let go of the things that are not in alignment. You shift the old mindsets, the old beliefs, and then start planting seeds for new systems and that. And then year 1 comes and you're like, oh, I'm magical.
Yeah. Like, that's why I love numerology. Like, you can't deny it. Like, the energy
Right?
there. Okay. Lastly, I just want to give you an opportunity to share where people can find you. I will definitely link everything in the show notes. But you can share how they can find you, and if you want to share ways to work with you.
There is just, I feel like, again, like there is so much that is pouring and like itching to come out of me. So this year is really going to be a year where I like really allow myself to be seen and connect with others and connecting communities and that too. So there's going to be a lot coming, a lot of opportunities, and there are a lot. So there's really like a lot of ways in which people can connect with me, and all different price points too, in different ways. Like there's magic there for everyone to meet you where you're at. And so the biggest thing that I have right now is my upcoming course launch that kicks off on February 15th. And that is super exciting. That is the Return to Love journey. And it is a live experience for the first round. So it's going to be a live experience where it's going to be 6 weeks of live calls with me, where I'm going to talk about a lot of the things we talked about, but just take it deeper and deeper, and really peeling back those layers to open up the mind, to start allowing yourself to see other perspectives, that you hold or the world holds, and to therefore then reconnect to your own, and releasing a lot of that judgment and really holding that safe space. So there's going to be a lot of heart, just like anyone that's listened to this call, a lot of heart activations and heart openings. It's just a space that I allow myself to be that vessel for holding for other people. And so it's really going to be transformative. And again, I'm going to talk about a lot of things: the ego, relationships, victim, villain, polarity, soul wounds, trauma, the lot, but just go deeper week after week on one topic at a time. And there will be Q&A too. So that's why I'm like, this live experience is like really massive, because you'll be able to get on the spot coaching where I can help you walk through your own personal experience in the way that I would with a one-on-one client, but I'll be able to do it in the live call. And then again, in the Facebook group, I'm going to have a Facebook group where I will be a presence there too, and again, answer more questions. So that's kicking off on the 15th, and that again is a killer offer at $222 for the whole experience, which is less than what I charge for one-on-one call with me. And so it's funny because I just heard the number 222, and I'm always like the worst with numbers in terms of like pricing myself, and I always ask Caitlin, and I didn't ask you this time.
You didn't
ever. The first time I like price can you see if this energy is in alignment? And I just was like, that's the price. And I'm like, okay, I'm just trusting and surrendering this year. And then the other day I was like, why that price? Just out of curiosity. And I Googled 222, and it's about balance and harmony and connection and love. And I was like, well, snap. That is exactly what the energy that is being called to be poured through. So if you can't make it for the live, it will be available recorded after. So it's going to be just as expansive. So trust whatever you're feeling drawn to if you want to come for the live, or if you want to come and get the recorded versions after that. Again, I always have one-on-one experiences where people can work with me one-on-one for 3 months, 6 months. It can continue on, whatever that is meant for more. And that is a deep dive into your soul, being and journey and experience, and me guiding you through all of these things that are presenting for you, the energies that are presenting for you, helping you see the energies, opening up your mind, opening up your heart, but really going deep and personal with you and your experiences so you can crack back open to the magic that's always been you, that version of you that is limitless, love, abundance, joy, and start allowing that to pour through. If you feel like you're at the beginning, I've got, and it doesn't even matter, like beginning, Christ, I could go through this course again. Unbecoming is one. It's literally deconditioning our mind, our body, our soul, environments, everything, unwiring ourselves from the stories that we've told ourselves. So there's a lot of ways. Last but not least, I'll just mention, if you go to my website, they're all there. They're all explained. You can tap into what feels aligned for you. But one thing that's super exciting, if you're like tiptoeing around, especially too, if it's like you're new to me and you don't know if you're ready to dive in 100% with me on something. I was asked to speak at an amazing event called Co-Create, and that is happening in March. And that is a collaboration of like 30 to 50 different healers, guides, like you name it, everybody is there, from human design to Reiki to quantum physicists to light code, like amazing light code people, and all these amazing souls. And that is going to be a big conference. I think it's 10 days, a 10-day conference, and there's multiple speakers every single day. You get to hear from all these amazing speakers. There's going to be groups, workshops, Q&A panels. So an amazing experience to really like trust that feels aligned, like to go in, because I find when I go to these things, it's like there are certain people that speak to me and I'm like, that is what I need. And so if you are feeling like you are ready to just like open up your heart and your mind to a wealth of spiritual guidance and love and support and community and connection, the Co-Create events would be a great one for somebody to attend and get a ticket to. So that I will need to put a link up on my stuff, but I should put that somewhere on my own page. I share it continuously, but I don't have anything standing on my page. So I think I will put something that is there, but one can always reach out to me too if you need the link, and I can send you the link to Co-Create. But that's going to be a magical event that you'll have access to all of those sessions and recordings to tap into whenever you feel the call to. So that's another way to get maximum exposure to a wealth of like spiritual everythings. And mind, body, soul, like you name it, it is going to be so expansive, and a great intro too, to like get to hear from me and other healers, and to really find the healer that you are in alignment with. I truly believe that every single person we work with is a soul contract that like we are stepping into, and doesn't mean we are going to align with every contract we have in every lifetime. No way, Jose. We've got multiple for many reasons, because we're beings of conscious choice. So it depends where you're at, where they're at. Is it in alignment? But unless you put yourself out there, you're not going to create the opportunity for yourself to find your people. People always ask me, like, how do I find my people? And I'm like, I don't know, I just all show up because I'm there. I show up, they show up for me, and then I'm like, that's my person. Oh, I need this right now. I need this right now. And that's how I pick my growth and who I work with. It's not like, I'm not looking at like, who is this person? What do they do? Where did they learn? Like, I'm just like, no, this is my person. They showed up randomly on my feed, or they showed up randomly on the Google deep dive. Like, it's literally how I've been so guided into just like following the whispers and the messages that are constantly coming for me. So really that awareness again. But that is, yeah, there's a lot of ways in which one can work with me. I have free guides, meditations, all things. So wherever you feel like you're at, I would encourage you just go to my website, click on the work with me, see all the different options. And yeah, if you want a cool live experience with me, Return to Love starts February 15th. And that is where my heart is just like
Yeah.
Like this podcast, it's going to be like that 1 week after it. Like, imagine this podcast is going 6 weeks and we go really deep on everything to help you really like open your mind and open your heart to reconnect to the truth that's been inside of you all along, that powerful love that is you.
Mm, yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing all of that. That's amazing and valid point. Like your event that you're speaking at, remind me of the name. I completely
Co-create.
co-create. Yeah, if you haven't worked with Melissa before and you like her energy, obviously check out her offers. And the Return to Love is an amazing deal. I'll say that right now. But attending an event where you can hear from other people, it like goes back to that, like just absorb and then you get to decide what you want to take on, and that might activate you and like what you like, pay attention to what your intuition's saying, because it will activate you on like where do you want, like what step do you want to take, because there's no right or wrong, and it's like which path do you want to go on, and it might lead you back to Melissa and maybe signing up for something with her. But that's really valuable. I love it when like large groups of healers and coaches and whatever come together, because like who doesn't want all that? So okay, well, thank you so much, Melissa, for being on the podcast. Again, I'll link everything below on how to connect with you, and thank you just for sharing your heart and your wisdom with us. And I know so many people are going to enjoy this, and I'm going to go back and listen to it and write down all the tidbits of gold that we had. So,
Yeah. Well, and thank you, Caitlin. It is honestly such an honor. And I'm just eternally grateful every second of the day and every time I speak to you, like to be able to connect with you and just a journey together and everything that we have. It's like, so it's like one massive full circle moment after another with you, I feel like. And I'm just so grateful for that experience and to be able to impart whatever wisdoms in my heart and my love on your audience as well. It is just such an honor, and I am so grateful for this platform, for you, and for everything that you were doing. You were so magical and amazing, and I just love you to the moon and back a million times over.
aw, thank you so much.